This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 58.
One trade a day. I waited for the market to do what I liked to see of it, and I mirrored what I did paper trading. It was one trade a day.
All right, well, welcome to the podcast. This one is a little different, and hopefully you noticed that in the title of the thumbnail, but this is part two of our interview with Sean. So if you have not listened to part number one, make sure to listen to episode 57. We'll include a link down in the show notes if you have not listened to that. I suppose you could listen to this one, but you're just going to pick up right in the middle of the journey. So if you want the full effect and kind of the full journey, then like I said, go back and listen to episode 57. So without further ado, let's pick up back with Sean.
So my very first trade that I made was I went to my ever old faithful 401k Apple. Here I come. So
Let me. What happened psychologically? Because here, your first trade you're going to do, you literally, for lack of a better term, you wussed out. You just got scared. So that's a big mental block, and good for you for not forcing the trade. But from that point until this Apple trade, I mean, what was going on in your mind? How long of time frame was that? Give or take, and then just what needed to happen for your mental hurdles to be broken?
I actually had to change some things on a personal level. Like I had to come up with a routine, I have music playing in the background. I will talk to myself. My poor dogs. I mean, they probably know about as much as trading as anybody else does. It'd be like, just talking to myself, being like, okay, you invested all this time. It's like, be confident, do this. So I took a week and I just started writing it on paper instead of making the value trade, the dollar trade. And I started writing it on paper, and I was floored on what it did, how much I wasn't going to make, because still in the back of my brain, it was just like I was expecting to double my money. I was expecting to, have rent in a day. Does that make sense? So it was a lot of emotions, and I kept going back to the robotic trading. It's about the charts. It's about the charts. It's about the charts. And I have a friend that actually is a pretty high up at Apple. And one day they had their what do we call that when they give their
Their
Earnings
show.
or release
thank you
things or
earnings, yes, their
earnings.
earnings. And he was like, oh my gosh, we are rocking it, this is going to be great. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna paper trade this, and I want to just see what's going to happen. I want to see how much money I can make on this. And it's like I'm thinking, okay, this is going to go to the moon, and it plummeted, and I'm like, what was that all about? And then all these doubts are coming in my mind. See, you really don't know what you're doing. You have no idea that this is, that. And I'm thinking, I have to start all over. It wiped me out. It totally wiped me out. And I'm like, okay. So I emailed you. I had emailed you, and I know I didn't talk about it because I didn't talk about that specifically, but I was just like, I truly don't understand when, a company says that they're going to do good, and the market did the opposite. I couldn't comprehend it. I was like, what? And you said something to me that day where it was, and it's been reiterated through so many things. And I think the last time I've heard it is Leonardo Michael said it in his podcast. It doesn't matter what that stock is. It doesn't matter, who it is. It doesn't matter what they've got coming up. That company could be amazing. It could have great things coming up, but the market is going to do what it's going to do. And at that point, it was like I stopped. The only time I guess I pay attention is when the Fed stuff is out there, and I do pay attention, but it's like a chart is a chart is a chart. And if you practice the chart and you practice your RVR, the rest of it shouldn't matter because that whole Apple thing just proved it to me by dollars. I think it plummeted. I want to say it plummeted like $10, $10 in on my option screen, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So that was my big aha. When you said that to me, it totally changed my game. Totally changed my game.
And it is funny how that works, but I want to go back just slightly into what you're saying because this is, a lot of traders don't understand the importance of, or the reality of those voices that come out. Sean's been working at this for over a year at that point, and she's ready to put on a trade, and these voices are coming out, and that emotional capital of, I lost my confidence just from this one thing happening, and it's so important to kind of realize that, it's going to be an up and down roller coaster in the beginning, and these voices are real. When there's real money on the line, especially, or if you're paper trading is extremely realistically, those voices are always going to be there. And just like Sean said, if you focus on the chart, things are okay. You know what your plan is, things like that. You can try to be as cool and calm and collected as you want to. The voices are going to be there, but logic and rationale will always calm those voices down if you know what you're doing. But just like Michael said, and just like you're saying right now, the market's going to do what the market's going to do. Sometimes good news is bad. Sometimes bad news is good. We're merely here to kind of read and kind of plan our trades and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's always, and it's a great saying, and I'm sure I use, be your own boss. And true, as traders, we are our own boss to an extent, but also you're not your own boss. Your boss is the market, because at the end of the day, the market's going to do what it wants to do. And it's how you react to it, which is, yes, I said the word react. Anybody that says they can predict the future is lying to you. There is no predicting the future. It's reacting, and that's why risk management is. Now, there's certainly highly probable things. You can tilt the probabilities in your favor, but there's no way to, predict what the market's going to do. So the market's your boss. When it says jump, you just got to say, well, I'll put a trade plan in place, and we'll see how high I need to jump, but that it kind of is what it is. And just really quickly, I found it fascinating that you just writing things down on a piece of paper, really kind of brought reality home. Like, oh wow, it exposed the voices that were still, for whatever reason, making you think that you're going to double your money. But just by writing it down, you pretty much squashed them and said, oh yeah, I'm not being realistic at all. So I thought that was kind of really cool too. So. Now, this Apple trade because I kind of diverted us, you said you were too scared to take the one trade, and then fast forward, you were ready to take another trade on Apple. Was that Apple trade you just talked about, or is that something different?
It was probably about a week later, and it was like, okay, because that was at that
because
point,
the earnings one was a paper trade, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
This next Apple trade is going to be one with real money?
This is with real money.
All right, here we go, Ches. We're going live. Here we go.
So yeah, this is and this was and I should have probably reiterate because it was one trade. This is the only trade I made before I actually went when I realized it, because I went to make my trade, and I didn't have my RVR in place. I didn't have anything in place, and I lost like $300 in, like, it seemed like 0.11 second. Like, that whole, it was horrible. I mean, I was like, I cried. I was like, what happened?
So you literally cried?
I cried.
Okay.
I cried.
I just bring that up because we've had Dan almost passed out on the floor once. Gator has put himself in timeout.
People have knocked doors off their hinges.
So it's.
Yep, I've heard all of those. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So
I cried, and I kept looking at that. I looked at that chart, and I'm actually looking over at Apple like it's happening. But I was like, I looked at that chart, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. I am like clueless. It's like, oh, and I got out. I did get out. I lost over $300, so I'm down to $700, and I'm like, okay, all right, I am not a trader. I just wasted over a year of my life.
Sean, this pains me to hear you. Oh, I didn't know you. Oh, come on.
Yeah. So at that point, I had I think there was a representative that called me from TD Ameritrade, and it was like, I don't know, somebody was watching out for me, and I had told him what happened, and he goes, well, why don't you go to our paper side and paper trade? And I was just like, what? And so I did. But then I had to learn I had to build that platform, and it was, yeah. So that was another few weeks, but I was pretty good at it and got her done, and I started paper trading. Except for the fact that when I paper traded, I was in the I'm gonna get rich fast really quick. So I'm like, all right, let's go in here. Let's buy 10 contracts at $352 a piece, or $3.52 a piece. And and in in 5 minutes, you're gonna make, and I was smoking it, man. I was like, yes, I got this. Yeah. And yeah,
You
then
want to take this, Ches? I'm recognizing a massive problem right here,
Oh
which we
no, no,
talk about all the
I want to
time.
let this play out. I want to let this play out because
All right, yeah,
that's
let's
the
let it
beauty
play
of
out.
some
That's good.
people on paper platforms. So
Call.
you're rocking this now. Now what?
so so I'm trading away, and I realized it was like I flipped over to the other side one morning, and it's like you have $700 on the paper side. You had 100 grand. You don't have enough money to even trade the way you were trading on the paper side, so don't even go there. So back over to the paper side I went, and then it got real. Then it got really real for me, and
How long, real quick, how long were you actually, with the paper trading and doing all this unrealistic stuff? How long did that actually
oh,
go on for?
like maybe 2 weeks, just 2 weeks. I played with it more than anything, because at that point in time, I mean, I was trading everything that I saw moving. I mean, it was, I didn't have my romances at the time. It was like I didn't have that in place. So it was like, okay, we're gonna have to go back to the
Is
paper
it
trade.
is it safe to say that that function of paper trading was probably the confidence booster to get you out of that rut you were feeling? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, yeah. It was almost like the Kool-Aid of paper trading. I drinks the paper trade Kool-Aid. I
Is
don't
is it
know.
is it also fair to say that that 2 weeks ultimately turned out to be a massive waste of time because you were being unrealistic and you totally just
Yeah.
it just I mean,
Yep. Yep.
so point here, I'm not trying to rub it in, but a couple podcasts ago, I was also kind of kicking somebody where it's like the point here is when you're being unrealistic with paper trading, don't get me wrong, it's great that you're paper trading, but practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And if you're not practicing the right way, then you're totally wasting your time because when you go live, you're going to get kicked in the places where you don't want to get kicked. And it's going to be like, well, that didn't go well. And you're going to look back and say, but I paper traded. And a lot of people don't realize, well, yeah, when you're paper trading with 10 contracts and, doing what Sean's doing, it just doesn't work out. So, and we'll link in the show notes a video that I think it's titled, perfect practice makes perfect, something like that. But, where I go over the kind of steps you can kind of do a self audit on your paper trading to make sure that you're actually keeping it realistic because there's lots of little things that you can be doing that it ultimately turns out to be a waste of your time because when you go live with real money, it's just a whole new animal, and you just want to keep things as real as possible. So you go through 2 weeks, you waste your time, and then you go back and paper trade some more. So this time, second, kind of 2.0, where you're a little bit more realistic with everything.
A lot happened for me at that point where I got to the point where I realized that, it wasn't just about I was working with the money that I was working with. It was the fact that, okay, I need to really, if I'm going to do something with this, because I am not, I've invested money into my education. So there's a chunk of money there. I had this $1,000. There's a chunk of money there. And I'm not going to flush it. I'm just not going to flush it. So I realized it's like, you know what, you need to sit back and you need to just figure out, find a couple tickers. You talked about the liquidity and, what's going to, those tickers that I'm going to have a better chance of it moving, being able to pull, to make a trade successfully and not be hung up out there. So what I did was I started following Apple and the Spy and what was my other
Was
one?
it Tesla?
Yes, it was Tesla because Hooch, thank you very much. He was like smoking Tesla, and and then that was and that was one that had the bigger spreads on it. So I wanted to learn a little bit about, what does it do? What is that? What is it? What happens in those bigger spreads? So so I started off with I started off and I those are the only tickers that I would watch, and I would do my homework. And if I didn't get it, I would go back and I'd find the video that covered it, or I'd be looking for the patterns. I would I'd be ready. I would do my homework, and it took me so long. I mean, 3 hours every night. I would sit down and I would draw my trend lines, and I would, get ready to go. And then I would get realistic. I got realistic with my money. And I thought to myself, if I can just make better than what the bank is going to pay me in a savings account, that's a win. And that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I started doing. And I started paper trading that way. And I allowed myself $300 in my paper trading account. And my very first trade that I made on Apple, and I made $40 based off of I think it was a bull flag. I think that's what it was. And I made $40. I was happy as a lark, and I stopped. I was done for the day. It was like, okay, that's the feeling I need to feel. So I got more I got more familiar with that feeling of, I see the pattern. My trend line is there. My RVR is in place. You drew that T at one time on something.
On a webinar, probably. Yep.
Yep. And that confirmation, it's like I looked at my time frames. It's like, okay, there's room for it to move. There's everything was in place. And it's like I pushed that, I could click that buy with such confidence. It's like, okay, this is going to be, but I also had to be ready for it to not work too, because of course, nothing's ever guaranteed in the market. So, I made that. I remembered that feeling. I documented it, what it was. I wrote it down. I was like, okay, this is what it feels like. So I did that.
Do you remember this is what it feels like? Do you remember what you wrote down off the top of your head?
I do.
What did it feel like, I guess, is the question.
It was the word. It all came together. Everything just came together. It was everything from the chart to what I've learned, to my, reading what I saw, the confirmation, and just being ready with RVR. It was total confidence. It was total confidence that I was ready no matter which way that market was going to go. Total confidence. Now,
Awesome.
and I've been in trades where it's just like I've been that confident, and the very first time that it went the opposite way, it was like I think I sucked all the oxygen out of the room, because I went, oh my God, but and my RVR was not perfect, but I got out, and it was like, and I had to document that trade because I remember how gut wrenching that felt. It was like, oh, this is not where I want to be. All my hard work, all those great feelings that I had in that confident trade, and be like, yes, boom, this is how this felt. And I wanted more of those.
As you said, there are no guarantees. Something can
Right.
be as pretty gets, but the
Yep.
market may decide, no, I'm just fooling with you. That's why you got to manage risk. So this is all paper trade still, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
when exactly, well, two questions. First, how long did all this paper trading go where you're taking it very seriously, which is awesome, by the way?
Yep.
I mean, 3 hours a night, and you're paper trading properly, and you're doing all that, you're writing down feelings. I mean, fantastic. So how long did all that last for until you made your first trade with real money?
It was I want to say November I got serious about. So it was like the end of November, I want to say, is when I found out about the paper side. So it was November, December, January, February, and then end of March I went live. That's how
Okay,
that
of 2015.
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Yep. Yeah.
That makes sense because that's right when we about started the podcast, and right
Mm-hmm.
when the Sean frenzy was going on because you were killing it, and I'm trying to kick down your door, Sean, get on the podcast. But we had to wait a little bit. So here we are, almost a year later from that. So you start going live, and you went live with $500. Is that correct?
I actually went live with $250.
Oh, great! Now the legend grows.
This just makes it even so much better.
Now,
Okay, so
I'm
this
going.
is amazing.
Now, Ches and I were both going to make a confession to you, and you do not know this, Sean, and Ches does not know that we're going to confess this to you, but a little spoiler, when you started to kill it, and when these numbers, when you're like, oh yeah, I made this today, and I made this today, Ches and I, outside of the inner circle, we would talk on Skype. Do you remember this, Ches? When we were trying to, and we're like, do you believe her? I don't know, and then remember, Sean, when I had asked for you to send me like images showing your gains and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was because we were quite
it's not a comic.
we did not trust you. We thought you were we thought
And
you had some sort of ulterior motive because
it's not
you were
a personal thing.
you
It's
were
not a
killing it, and we're like, what is the angle that she's trying to do? She seems like the nicest person ever. She's a great community. We're like, I don't. So we did not believe you at first, but to all the listeners out there, because when you hear these numbers, you're going to be like, no, that didn't happen. She proved it to me time and time again.
And full disclaimer, the reason why we're not so trusting always is because some people have tried to dupe us in the past, and we're usually smart enough to say like, yeah, we don't believe that you made 16 grand today with your, $1,000 account or something. So let's see some proof. So
we've had, and just it's the industry as a whole. Like a lot of people proclaiming to do magical things, and then when you start to pry a little bit deeper, things all of a sudden fall apart real quickly. So we pride on our, Ches and I kind of talked about it. I said, hey, would you mind sending me those gains and stuff? And she, oh yeah, no problem, Clay. And sure enough, there all those gains would come. So Sean, I do apologize for not trusting you, but you just can't be too careful out there. So do you accept my apology?
Totally. Well, I was skeptical of you too, so you got to accept mine as well.
I accept yours then. So, but you don't accept Chez's, right? His apology is
totally. No. I remember. It's funny. No,
she just said no, Ches.
I know. Ches is awesome. I remember when Ches came on board. When Ches came on board. Honestly, and I thought, you young whippersnapper, you. It's like, dang, you know so much about the market. And truly, I mean, even to this day, there's so much talk that you guys talk about the market that I still don't understand. And for me, I totally keep it simple. And Ches, you are such a wealth of knowledge, and just what you've taken, and done with the market and your own personal discipline and your growth. It's been amazing to watch you as well. But all the things that and for what you've contributed to the inner circle, I was thrilled when Clay brought you on board. Totally.
Well, I want to say thank you for that. And you know what, Clay, I don't even care if she doesn't accept my apology because she just complimented me. So I don't need that apology anymore because I'm floating on cloud 9 over here. But
yeah, I can tell I think you just grew about 4 inches taller over there. So it must be that cloud. But all right, Sean. So you are now going live with $250.
Yep.
Let's just walk us through the first trade, and I guess just kind of walk us through what happened then. But because there's this thing out there that exists known as the Sean Challenge that people try to do. But I guess how'd that first trade go with $250? And I'm excited to. I kind of know where all this goes, so this isn't totally shocking, but I think it'll be entertaining for the listeners.
So my very first trade was I went to my 401k Apple. I went to the that night before I looked at everything, and I knew what I was going to do, and I felt really good about how Apple was doing, and the market was very bullish. So I had that kind of in the back of my head with RVR in place, of course, and I waited until the market got going. I mean, in paper trading, I would do some of that scalping in the beginning, when it would gap down, and I'd do that a little bit, it was I don't know if the right word was fun, but that I had to be very, very confident in that. But when I only had that much money to risk, it was like, I'm going to do this because I'm treating this like this is it, Sean. This is do or die. Here we go. And so I waited for the market to open up, and and it was one of those days where it had gapped up, and I was like, yes, okay, I liked it already. I was excited, and I waited for it, and it came back down, and it did exactly. And I made $41.50, I think it was, and that was after my commissions, and I stopped for the day, and I
Hey,
did
that sounds
that.
familiar, almost like what you were doing with your paper
Yep.
trading.
Yep. And
Very
I did
nice.
I did that. I made one trade a day. I waited for the market to do what I liked to see of it, and I mirrored what I did paper trading. It was one trade a day. Now, did I like, and when I was paper trading, like I'd go and I'd do something in the rest of the morning, but I'd come back in the afternoon and kind of see what's going on. And I'd look for patterns. But I wouldn't risk my money. I would look for the patterns. I didn't click it. I guess that's the way I would say it. I write it down and do it that way, but I wouldn't actually trade it off my platform. So every day I would do that. I would wait, and it didn't matter. Like the first week I was green the whole week, but it was one trade. I was done. And now all I was doing was I would take one or two contracts, and that is what I would trade. It truly depend on my confident and my feeling, whether it was two like 55-cent contracts, whether it was the two $100 contracts, if it was one 200, it didn't matter. I was taking that money, and I was gonna make money. I was gonna make it happen. But like I said, I waited for it to do what I wanted it to do. I didn't take what I won and put it back in there. I kept what I won, and I kept building my buying power and building my buying power and building my buying power. That was my ultimate goal.
So by the end of week one, how much was your account size at that point?
I was up just over $500.
Okay, so you had doubled your account in that first week
Correct.
by making
Correct.
one trade a day. Because for the people out there like, she made 40 some bucks. First
Mm-hmm.
off, you've been brainwashed by the late night infomercial tactics. Second off, you can see that things like that actually add up because now she's sitting at a doubled account size. So, but that, I mean, with this part is really just getting started.
And to those listeners who have just arrived here, so you just heard it. You can ignore everything else that was said before. Just know that Sean doubled her account in a week. You could do it with a $500,000 account. You'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
You'll be good to go.
Yep, exactly. All you got to do is sign up for the inner circle, and we'll take care of the rest. So, because Sean is in there giving hot stock picks. So, anyways, so we'll just, you don't have to go trade by trade, but just why don't you go week by week now, so we can kind of, make sure that we're not here all day. But so week by week, how did things continue to unfold for you?
So what I did was then I kind of stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I got a little more bold with my trend lines. And instead of just trading the Apple, I got involved in SPY in the SPY, and I traded SPY the following week. I did take a loss. I took a $10 loss one day, and I took a
Ooh, Sean, ouch. $10 loss, ouch.
It was crazy. And I'll be really honest with you. There was a point in time in my life. I have two kids. There was a point in time in my life where, and maybe this is why I feel this way about my money, but I'm not a gambler, and I was just in Vegas, and that just totally proved it all. But there was a point in time in my life where $10 was what I had left in my pocket, and it was a choice of, okay, do I put gas in my car or do I feed my children? So for me, it was like, okay, that's $10. I didn't sweat it because I knew that there was that RVR still there, and I was still green. I was still, I was still up, and I was still, moving forward. But it was, it wasn't going to be a habit. That wasn't going to be, wasn't going to be a habit. So then what I started doing at night was.
Can I step in, Sean? Because I feel terrible right now. So
No.
I'm not saying $10 because you're right. $10 to people is to some people maybe a lot of money. My comment was in regards to what she said. RVR. How much did she make on her first trade that she shared with us? $40. How much did she lose on this one? $10. So if you look at that as a proportion, she lost 1/4 of what she made. That is RVR at its finest. So that's what I meant by ouch $10.
She didn't have to be right. She didn't have to prove anybody right. She took her small loss and she moved along. And just like she was saying, she knows that, not to sweat it. There's plenty more good trades around the corner. And I think I don't know. I'm at a loss of words. It's too good.
But $10, if $10 is a lot to you as a listener, I'm not saying that that's not a knock against you. That was just me making the observation from a risk versus reward standpoint. Because yeah, Sean, you're like you said, you had moments where it was, well, gas in the tank or this, that, or the other. So, but I wanted to clarify that it's all about the risk versus reward within the context. So you took a $10 loss. How did you move on from that? Did that mean that you're a terrible trader, or did you want to give up, or did you were just like, hey, that's part of the system?
Nope, I stopped for the day, and then I went back and I did the on demand. And it was just the fact that the market just didn't do what it was supposed to do based on the pattern. And I was like, okay, it gave myself permission. I was being true to myself. And, it's like, okay, I gave myself permission to move on. And, as a brand new trader, it was like, I couldn't ask for a better tool than that, to be able to go back and just watch the market and what it's doing. That on demand tool has been a blessing in disguise for me as well. So, I just got right back in the saddle the next day, and and I was able to be green. Overall, I took another small loss, but I was trying to trade two tickers at the same time. So that was another whole new game for me, because it's like part of me was, and I'm being very honest, my ego stepped in. I was like, okay, we're green. We're doing this. You got this, girl. You were gonna make some bucks now. Yeah, not so much. So I ended up with a wash on the day that I traded SPY and Apple on that day, and it was like, again, I had to give myself some discipline and be like, okay, now you're going to sit down and watch on demand, or you only can trade one ticker at a time, and it was just sheer stupidity on my part. Just sheer stupidity on my part. I had to learn how to, because at this point in time, I did not set my stop losses. I was the stop loss. It was in my brain. I knew when I was going to get out. I'd put it out there. If it would get, I'd click on it. And I had to make that decision. It was a new habit I had to form. So if I'm trading two tickers, I'm going to learn how to, I have to set this up and put my stop loss out there so it doesn't kick my butt.
So a mental stop loss is what you just described there, where you're just going to do it in your mind. So for you listeners, when you hear mental stop loss, that's exactly what Sean just described.
Yep. So, so from that point on, I was very fortunate because, like I said, the market was very bullish. It was easier. I still didn't totally understand the whole Greek analogy. So I am still doing like the whole options thing. I'm trying to understand that a little bit more. It's like, oh, well, how come I only made this amount of money? Because, this Greek came in and took some of my, I didn't understand that whole concept. I had to get smarter with my entrances and my exits, trying to, learning where the tops and the bottoms were, and that was a huge plus. The IC was great with that. I mean, just talking out loud, and that's where the teamwork is amazing, where, we're all kind of watching the same thing, but not. And so those all kind of came into play. And as the weeks went by, I think by the end of the month, I had almost $1,300 in my account. And I only traded, like I gave myself a raise on a weekly basis on what I could trade. So I started off the 250. And so this is where I'm talking like that video. I think you made a video about it. It's like I'd get to like that grandma number, and I'd be like, okay, I just got to get over this $500. And I couldn't do it. It was crazy. I was just like, what's up with that?
Setting goals for yourself. Those are risky. It's counterintuitive, but setting goals like that, it's hard.
Yeah, I back off, and I'd only allow myself to trade with $400, and the rest of it was still my buying power. But I would only allow myself to trade, X amount of dollars, and I'm done. That's it. You're done for the day. So that is truly how I built it. And in my portfolio, by the end of the month, I was probably at about I was at 1480. I was at 1480 by the end of the month.
So 250 to 1480 in 1 month.
In 1 month.
Okay,
yep.
So let's keep on chugging, Sean. Now let's go by months itself. So you don't have to go by week, but now, so at the end of the next month, talk about kind of that month as a whole, anything that really sticks out to you that really remember, what not.
I stepped into Tesla. I had been practicing that one, and I stepped into that, and there was, it wasn't as volatile for whatever reason. And that second month, I was up over, I was at 32, what does that say? 32.6. 32.
And I believe if my memory serves me right, because this is how I remembered back in the interview when I had to remind you about Tesla. I think this is when I was saying, "Hey, Sean, would you mind starting to send me some screenshots or something?" Because I feel like Ches and I want to see those Tesla trades. So I think this is because you started a report and we're like, wait a second. I always thought you started with 500, but regardless, she started with she's already up to 30. Huh. And people wanted to be on the podcast. I can understand that. But so yeah, we were definitely shaky. So Tesla, you did very well with then.
Yep. But Tesla's also bit me too. So
I was going to say Tesla's not for the faint of heart. For those listeners who don't understand it, it is a much wider stock, and it moves. When it moves, it can move very drastically. So sorry to cut you off, but I want the listeners to kind of understand that it is not. It is not the child's part of the playground. It's the big boy swings or something.
And you hit the nail right onto the head, because that was some of the conversation I was having with the guys in the chat room, just picking the brains. It's like, well, what do you trade, and how do you grab a hold of that, and I actually, here's my little list of there's my my ever fail safe, Apple Spy, I got BIDU, I've got Facebook, I got Twitter and Google, and cost on there, and I kind of watch all of them. But it was like then looking at the Tesla, it's just like, and I remember Hooch saying it. He's like, be careful, be careful when you go into this, and I said, I get it. I've been watching it, and the first day that it hit, I think on the trade, I think I bought 2 contracts. I want to say I stuck 400 into it, and I got over 1,000 on it on that day. It was crazy. I mean, I was over the top ecstatic. I mean, it was like a kid in the candy store. I was so excited.
So do you remember the exact gain though? You said over 1,000.
It was over.
We'll say 1,000 just for.
Yeah.
So now let's go back. You also made note that it bit you a couple times. So walk us through one of these bites.
Yes.
And let's put some numbers, because I don't want this to sound like all rainbows and butterflies and that Sean just can do no wrong. So you got bit. So let's talk about one of the losing times.
So it was one of those where you're looking at the pattern, and it should be there, but just knowing what Tesla does, sometimes that denial can sneak up, and that voice is there. It's like, nah, it's not going to do that. It's not going to jump that high, and I actually had 3 contracts in, and I think it was like $300 in, and it was on the way up, and it consolidated, and it started to move up again, and I bought another 3 contracts, and as soon as it crossed the 200 SMA, and it went to the next candle. It plummeted. It totally plummeted, and there was nothing I could do. I could just get out. That's all I could do was just get out, because it was one of those, and that's where I learned with Tesla, hard stop. Got to have it. If you're not ready for it, it'll bite you, and when it bites, it does not feel good. And I took almost a $2,000 loss on Tesla on that one. So
that was a big lesson between Ches, real quick, and just explain. We went over mental stops. So what is a hard stop? Why would that have made such a difference here for Sean?
So a hard stop is something you will set in your actual platform, and there's a variety of ways you can do it, whether it's especially for options, whether it's if, say, the price of the actual stock drops to, say, $150, the brokerage will close your positions. It'll just say, get me out at whatever the best price is. I don't want to be in here anymore. At the same time, you could set a stop if, say, the option price drops below a certain threshold that you could use based on where it was for certain levels. And but what it does is it pretty much it takes all of your emotion and control out of it, because if the stock does and it reaches a level you don't want it to reach, the brokerage will close out of your position, and that's what you want to do, especially when things are going south pretty quickly, like it sounds like that candle did.
Right, and when Ches says the brokerage, it's not like some guy needs to go and do anything. It's a computer program. So to Sean's point, when everything's moving that fast, well, a hard stop is because it's a computer itself. So as soon as it's there, boom, it's out. Computer program takes care of it. So not the brokerage in terms of some guy you got to call up and he goes and does anything. No, it is just you're out. So that sets you back a little. Now, even within the month, even within the context of the month, you still grew your account that much, even with that $2,000 loss. Is that right?
I want to say that was probably my third month that that happened. Just thinking about it, I was just thinking about, just how my romances went. I want to say that was the third month because at what I got on here is by my second month, I had it was 48, 48.
Unreal.
And then, yeah,
It's amazing.
It was 48, but it was also the same. In my second month is when I needed to take some pressure off myself because my head was starting to think it's like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to pay rent. I need to do this. I need to do this. So what I decided to do was, and part of me was still thinking about, I was like, oh, is this too good to be true? Am I really doing this right? All these voices were just like, I was creating self-doubt. And so what I decided to do was, because I was coming on to summer, was I was going to be done working at the school and then I would be off for the summer, but I needed to know if I was going to be able to really support my household doing this. So what I had decided to do, and what I wanted was, I wanted buying power. I wanted more secure buying power, but I wanted that cushion. I don't know if that's the right security, whatever. So I went and got myself a part-time job at night doing what I hate to do.
Oh, you hear that? She went out and got a part-time job because she wants to be a trader. I don't even know where to. I won't even go into it. But I can't stand the excuse. I don't have any money. I want to be a trader. Well, there's this thing. There's part-time jobs out there that exist, people. So Sean, thank you. What a great example that is. You went out and got a part-time job because you wanted to get a little bit more money in your trading account. The easiest, most guaranteed way to grow your trading account for you listeners out there is to what, Sean? What is the guaranteed way to grow your trading account?
Get a job.
Get a job. There you go. And use that money to fund your trading account. There you go. You're going to grow your account by doing that. So Good job, Sean. You got out there and got a part for something that you don't even like. What was this part-time job? Are you allowed to say?
I bartend. Am I allowed to say? Oh,
I didn't know. I didn't know if you were going to say like stripper or something. So.
No. Oh, Lord.
We may have to edit that out. We try to keep this G-rated. I may have crossed the line.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, so you're doing something you don't like to kind of help and ensure that you are comfortable with what you're able to do, and this isn't fool's gold. And like you said, it's not even something you like, but you know that it's going to give you kind of some peace of mind. So what happens from here?
So I actually still have that job I don't like yet, still to this day. And but that's when I made that decision. And it was shortly when I made that decision. I had that 2000. It was like something, for whatever reason that happened. It was like confirmation. It's like, yes, this is what I need to do. So choosing the reason I chose that was because it was at night and, CTU is going, everything's recorded. I can always catch up on it. I'm able to hold the job. I'm able to trade during the day. I'm still able to take care of my family. And I started recovery of that 2000. It was between the second and the third month that I had that happen, because it was the beginning of summer. And that's when I learned what the summer trading was, because that confirmation of somebody's telling me that summer trading was on, that volatility was there. I needed to be ready. I wanted to be ready for whatever would happen. So by me having this other job, I didn't feel like I had to force a trade. It's like, oh my gosh, I got rent coming up in 2 days. I have to make this trade and the market's so volatile. It's like, ugh. So I have just maintained doing that job, and it's just given me great peace of mind, because my trading is one thing, and this is its own separate entity from the rest of my life. Does that make sense? I guess
it does. Peace of mind makes perfect sense, and that's why I recommend it to people all the time. It's unbelievable what a part-time job will do for your peace of mind as a trader when you do have another little stream of income flowing in. So let's get to that magic number. How big did you actually grow that $250? Over the course, I can't remember the exact time, but it was a pretty relatively short amount of time. How big did that eventually get? Let's, I guess, narrow it down. I mean, it got up to over 10 grand, right?
Correct. Yep. I got over 10 grand. I started working that job And then I still did the same thing. I did add buying power, but I kept it separate. So how do I say this? It was my goal to get to 10 grand. It was my goal to do that. And so to be true to myself, and that is something that I use all the time, to be true to myself, so that it just reaffirms and gives me that confirmation of how my confidence is. I had that sitting in the background. I was building buying power with my tip money and still growing my account. I grew my account to that 10 grand by myself with that $250. So today I can separate that out, and I'm not always putting everything I have out there on a trade. Am I saying that right?
You are.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay.
You're displaying money management skills and risk management within the foundation of your life, and
you're not going finances. All in, and you got a plenty big buffer that you can kind of trade in and out as you please. And but the thing is that account size didn't change you, and it didn't change your trading. You're still doing the same exact things that work, and you don't fix what's not broken. So you're just exhibiting good risk management, like Clay said.
So that's a good segue there, Ches. What are you actually doing now? As we're we're getting somewhat close to needing to wrap this up, but I mean, what does your setup look like? What's on your chart? What sort of strategies do you like to use?
Here, you want to see it? I'll show you. Here's my setup.
Well, you're gonna have to describe it too for our listeners, but I would like to see it.
You want to see it?
One monitor, two monitors. Okay, so there's two
monitors. I see Thinkorswim charts.
Hold on. Let me tip this. That's
three monitors. Ooh.
Yep, and then there's my chat room up there, and you're on my laptop. So my laptop and my monitor are like Thinkorswim and my personal, kind of a thing. My 3 screens and my hard drive are totally devoted only to my platform. That is it. Nothing else happens on there. That's all that's there. So
now what's on your charts? I mean, do you have like the chalk and money flow and the money flow index and
Fibonacci spirals? And
yeah, I mean, tell us about your charts. I mean, what are you using?
Well, let's see. I use the candlesticks. I use
price action,
Bollinger Bands. I use volume. I use 8 SMA, 50, 20, and 200. I have the VWAP on my 5 and 15. And I have one chart that has the MACD and the stock, the RSI on it that, I mean, I use it, but I don't use it.
That's kind of my relationship with the MACD and RSI. I use them, but I don't really use them.
I find it on my chart, but I realize that I don't really ever look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to look at it if I need reassurance, but if I need reassurance, then maybe I shouldn't be in the trade to begin with. But yeah.
So is it safe to say, Sean, that trading doesn't need to be rocket science where you have a million different indicators and a million different overlays? It can be pretty straightforward, right?
Correct. Yes.
And it's, there's a lot of story in a candlestick, isn't there?
Right. I think, just watching the candlestick, I mean, it's funny because, it's like when the market's bullish or, a chart is bullish, it's like you can almost feel yourself kind of rising up with the market. Or when it's, bearish, it's like, oh, okay, here we go. Putting the trend lines out there and, the emotion of the candlestick. That's really what I use. That in coordination with the volume. I have a couple of setups that I really enjoy or that I look for that really stick out to me, and it's just like, okay, yes, here we go.
Let's talk about it. Give us one of those setups. What's a setup that really kind of floats your boat?
I love it when the market gaps up and gaps down. And for everybody that knows me, I do not hold overnight because, it's like I can look at it and it'd be like, ooh, look at that daily. It's like curling over. It's like, yeah, that's probably going to go down. And I should really hold. And, I don't want to do that. But, I wait for it to gap down. And that's where CTU came into place because I didn't understand that whole gapping up and gapping down. And when I got to be part of CTU and you started showing those and walking through some of those patterns, I was like, oh, well, okay, I got this. Okay. And, again, then I would just practice it and be like, all right, and those are some of my favorites. This is my Hooch cheat sheet. I think this is on the. I think
It's in the forums, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that is.
This has been with me as long as I have been a trader.
You're supposed to have all those memorized, Sean. That is a
No.
cheat sheet.
She
Hence the
does.
word
Sometimes, just getting caught up in it, sometimes it's like, this is a confirmation thing for me
No,
still to this day.
It's just building repetition.
Yeah,
But,
no, that's.
I want to point something out to the listeners, though, especially that how Sean says she can almost rise and rise with the market and kind of be in tune with the market and kind of fall with the market. What that is that she doesn't walk in the morning, sit down at the desk and say, today is going to be a bullish day or today is going to be a bearish day. What she means by she's feeling like she's rising up or going down with the market is she is in tune with the market. She is reading what the chart has to say. She is not forcing her opinions and biases on it, and it has to be this one way. And if she's wrong, she's going to cut that loss short, and that's what it's all about. But that kind of that just really resonated with me, that what that means is that you can pretty much ride the waves of the market. You are in tune with it. You're not fighting it. It's not something that's attacking you or something like that. But I know I'm going on a tangent here, so I'll take it back on track. Sorry, Clay, I can feel you glaring me down over there. I'm just kidding. But,
I've never ever taken one of these podcasts off on a tangent. I've never been guilty of that. So
that's true.
I have every right in the book to be angry at you right now for taking us off topic.
But Sean, what would you say right now currently in your trading is something you would consider one of your strengths and one of your weaknesses that you want to work on?
Patience is definitely one of my strengths. I'm good with how things play out, and don't think that there's days where it's just like, oh, I don't know. The other day I put it on there. It's like, a little help with some patience encouragement here.
With your Facebook trade, which was a good one on your part. That was very nice.
It was stressful. It was stressful, and
it was going in your favor. Aren't those the weird ones when it's going in your favor, yet it's still kind of stressful because you're like, I want to sell, but hang on. Yeah. So that's funny.
Well, and it was one where, and it doesn't happen often, where it's just like, oh my gosh, this would be another normal entry point if you didn't catch it on the first, if you didn't catch it on the initial. So it's like, so I'm buying more as it's going in. So I'm like, do we call that scaling in? I don't even know what the words are, but it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a couple more contracts here. And it was just like, okay, all right. Okay. Oh, why did I do that? So all those voices are still hanging out there. It's like, just be patient. Look at the confirmation. The overall is good. Look at your time frames. And it did. It worked out great. So, and it's fun when you got somebody else, when you got other people cheering you on, and somebody else is riding the same wave with you. It's even more fun.
Yeah, I was straight up trading vicariously through you on that one because I missed it. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to trade through Sean. So yeah, all those updates were fun. But like, is there anything that you really you recognize as maybe a weakness that you want to work on? Because again, I mean, you've been doing a fantastic job, but we'll also keep it real. Nobody's perfect. So I'm sure there's still something that you'd probably nitpick about yourself.
I do. For me personally, I've worked really hard. These last couple of weeks have been really good, where I have been able to put what I'm seeing in the chat room and putting it out in the pit. An alert. I always feel really bad. It's like I see it and then I make money on it. It's like, oh, I should have put it in the chat room. But I also. I have to take care of myself first. That's where I'm trying to be true to myself, and I
absolutely
try to keep that up front. And it's not that I don't want to share, but that is something that I am working on, is being able to. And sometimes I'm a little late to the ball game, but it'll get better. I mean, just like everyday trading. But probably my weakness would be. I
usually I can kind of pinpoint something, but
to
be honest, I think you've just worked so stinking hard that you've truly covered a lot of your bases. I mean, I was going to say, well, your weaknesses, you kind of just, you hopped into things a little too quick, but you already learned that lesson on Tesla and you've addressed that. So, I mean, there's always the voices. I mean, here's a little weakness. Obviously, you still have voices if you're stressing out on the Facebook trade because that was going in your favor, but that's not in a bad way. I'm just trying to figure out something so it doesn't come across like you're some flawless, perfect trader. But I mean, you're doing well. The voices are still there. It sounds like, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Totally. I think the voices, as well as keeping myself keeping myself with my game on, and I say that before, I mean, 10 minutes before that bell rings, I get my game on. It's like I'm watching what's going on pre-market. I step away from the lounge. I go over to the pit, and just keeping my discipline, and trying not to. I don't want to get sloppy. I don't want to, I don't want to break that pattern, and fall off. I try to, if I do have a rough day, I have it be done, get over it, and get back on the game the next day. And yeah, but yeah, voices are always going to be there. It's
Okay.
I don't know. It's difficult.
Well, you're a good you're very preemptive. You recognize the things. You said it perfectly. Yeah, you don't want to get sloppy, and that's what the voices try to do to you, because through overconfidence, you start to get cute with trades, and you start to force trades because you think you're so good. But all that is a translation of you're becoming sloppy as a trader. But you already recognize that's a potential pitfall, so you're already putting in risk mitigation, just protocol into your system to avoid that. So I would say that's a massive strength. Is you're very well. It really goes back to the beginning, doesn't it, Ches? With her first back in the '80s, where she was just like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna play things. I'm not gonna invest anymore." She's always been good at managing risk through her instincts, and she's doing it right now by recognizing that sloppiness is a pitfall of successful traders.
Sloppiness, complacency, because that's when everything will take a turn for the worst. And, just like you said, she recognizes that can happen, and she's not going to allow it to happen. So it's like she's stepped in front of the problem before the problems even existed. And it's just great to hear.
You're like a magician, Sean.
Oh,
Sean
no,
the
no.
magician from Wisconsin. Don't you know?
Oh, I am by far, far, far from perfect. I mean, I have taken my losses, and I have, scolded myself, fired myself as a CEO, and, and have, taken off and been like, okay, you are done for the day, and flip over to the paper side, and, and just watch the market. So I don't even go there, because it's so not worth it. If your head isn't in the game, it's you need to shut your platform down.
If your head is not in the game, you need to shut your. That's a great way to. I don't want to say this, but I need to say it because we've been talking for quite a while. But we're gonna need to start to end this, and wrap it up. So, Sean,
okay,
I'm gonna steal your thunder here, Ches. Then you can steal mine. But you've listened to many podcasts, so you know that Ches owns a time machine, and you've also flattered Ches in this interview by complimenting him, which may be the first time that's ever happened. I'm kidding, Ches. You get compliments all the time. Anyways, so I'm sure he'll let you borrow his time machine. So if you could use that time machine, and we won't go back to the 80s since that was kind of, when you were just not really doing much of anything. But if you could go back to, 2014 when, you kind of met that guy or whatever that was supposedly having to hire people with this penny stocks or whatever. If you could go back to that part of your journey, what would be that one bit of advice you'd give yourself?
Listen to your gut, and that's what I did. I listened to my gut, but I think everything played out for me the way it was supposed to play out, and that's why I am where I am at. I think if I had a time machine and I could use your time machine, Ches, I wish I could take 25 years off my life and be able to know what I know now, and be in the market. That would be probably why I would want to use your time machine.
I love that, because everything you just said sums up how I kind of have an outlook on things, is that everything that had to happen led you to this point where you're at right now, and it's just kind of the part of the passage. And if you change something, you never know how things would end up. But very cool, very cool. Now, what's the only thing Clay really cares about in this, this interview was.
To be honest, I've zoned out for the past 2 hours. I don't know.
Who
are we interviewing?
Speaking about it, yeah. What would you say is your favorite movie?
Really, I love Disney's Cars.
That's a good movie.
It is like one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
To be honest, it's one of the movies out there that I probably laughed the hardest at. I don't know the guy's name, but all the other little tire changers are like,
yep.
Sorry for you NASCAR fans, I don't know what they're called, so I'm not. But that shows how much I watch NASCAR. But they're making fun of the one guy. They're like, oh, look at him. And then the car pulls up and he chucks all 4 tires up in the air and goes around and does it. Oh, man. I'm about to laugh right now just thinking about it. But that part, literally, I cry and laugh. Oh, I don't know what it is, but it's so fantastic. Ches, have you ever seen Cars?
I've only seen parts of it. I have not watched it. But then again, I don't have kids or My niece and stuff, we don't go.
I may have. It's not even really. I mean, it's a kids movie, but it's a good movie. And
When you have kids, you will see all the Disney movies.
I was gonna say, I'm sure all of that will change then, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to any of those. And Kelly really
Yeah.
loves Disney movies and stuff. So
Cool.
yeah, that's actually just one I haven't seen all the way through.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Otherwise,
I love that.
I like lots of movies. I'm a kind of a movie buff, so if something's
Oh,
recommended,
really?
I'll-
Well,
yep,
let's.
yep, yeah.
Ches,
Don't,
you give
Clay,
us a movie.
don't puff your chest out, Clay, because you've been proven time and time
Okay,
again that while
well,
you may be a self-proclaimed movie buff,
Don't ask
We're-
me
You've
about
been
quotes,
stumped.
though. I'm not good at that stuff.
Oh well, no. That I figured this time, if people are still listening, then they probably want to still listen. So I don't really care about the time. But all right. So Ches, this is what we're gonna do. You pick a movie, and then let's see if either of us can quote something from the movie, and you can pick whatever you want.
I'm gonna get smoked on this.
Jeez. What is it? Isn't it Airplane?
Oh come on, I haven't seen that one. Have you seen it, Sean?
I have.
Oh. Do you know any quotes from it?
No,
I don't even know any
it's
quotes
a
from
newer
it. I'm
one.
not.
It's
yeah.
a newer one, though.
Have you
Yeah.
ever seen Dumb and Dumber, Sean?
Of course.
Are you a
Of
fan of Dumb?
course.
Are you a fan
I-
of Dumb and Dumber?
How can you not be a Clay Trader fan and part of HTU and CTU and not be part of Dumb and Dumber?
You just plugged HTU. We cut. We're done.
Yep.
Hooch just.
Why
Oh,
did you
great.
throw
I
that
I
in
can see
there?
Hooch going to GoDaddy right now. Is that domain? Yeah, that's just his launch pad right there. He's just got confirmation. Sean just plugged a mythical university. So, but Gail is a teacher over there. So if
Yeah.
Gail's listening, we love you, Gail, but she's not.
Love you,
So,
Gail.
anyways, all right. What is your favorite food?
A good old ribeye. Ribeye on the grill.
Now, are you a big cheese fan?
Of course.
Okay, that's there. There's another
cheese and
stereotype.
beer. Yeah, cheese, beer.
Can I compliment you real quick here, Sean?
Yes.
I like the way you talk. I like the way you say your O's. CEOs. It's you got the whole Minnesota, Wisconsin twang. Ches, have you noticed that?
I have, but see, the thing is that I just understand that that's a part of how Sean talks, but I don't have to point it out like you do, Clay, because I can start
Did I
pointing out
insult
funny
you,
things.
Sean? Did I insult you?
Absolutely not.
No, I wasn't insulted.
I would
Doesn't
love to
faze
hang
me.
out with people from Wisconsin and Minnesota. Just by the way, hanging out. Pittsburgh, Sean. So, anyways,
Yes.
what about your
yes.
favorite song or band or whatever?
Well, I like music of all genre, and I actually have my I have a trading file on my computer that I have all my trading music that comes and pops up on the inner circle like Dan will play some music. So I've got my own trading music going on, and just kind of depends on the on the day, because I pretty much listen to everything. So
Very
nothing
cool.
really favorite.
Now, what's a place you'd like to visit someday in the future?
Oh no, I
Pittsburgh?
forgot about this question. Pittsburgh, that'll be in the very near future. Yeah, that'll be fun. I just got to decide if I'm going to take the train or if I'm going to
Are you
fly.
seriously?
or
Are you
drive.
seriously coming?
I'm really hoping I can. I'm
Okay,
really
so
hoping
it's still
I
in the
can.
planning stage. It's still
Yep.
not quite official.
I have to make sure everything's good with the kids. So
Okay.
that Dad's got the kids covered. So yeah. But where would I like to visit? If I could have a choice, I would say probably Ireland, because I am native Ireland.
Oh, you're from
Ancestors.
Ireland, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, my name is
Yeah.
Sean.
You can go there and eat some potatoes.
Yeah.
Hey, was that pretty good, Sean, or no?
I'm impressed. Yeah. See, yeah,
Look,
leper-
Ches, she's impressed. Okay.
You got a
Leprechaun.
compliment out of this too. So there you
Yeah,
go.
that's now we can both leave happy. Excellent, excellent.
Perfect.
What about fun or hobbies? What do you like to do
Well,
besides eat cheese?
eat cheese. Yeah. Well, I love to hunt. Turkey season is like upon us, and I have a son who is like, woo, he's like on fire for it, and so he's all set to go and ready to call in a bird for me, since I called in his first bird on his very first hunt. And I like to deer hunt. I like to fish. I like to camp. I like to pretty much anything I can do outside, being outside. I love family time. That's really important to me. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, what would you say? What 3 words would you use to describe and kind of associate with the successful traders or trading?
Probably, I wrote these down somewhere. I can't remember what book I put it in. I would have to say probably being true to yourself is really, if don't fool yourself, because going to be the fool. It's your money. It's your, it's about you. This isn't, you're not doing this for Clay. You're not doing this for me. You're not, yeah, we're all in this together, and, we're all cheering each other forward, but, be true to yourself and do what you have to do to make it work. If you really want it bad enough, you're going to make sacrifices, and you're going to do what you need to do to get it done. Be patient in the process of it. It's just like anything else, like riding a bike the first time, unless you're one of those that can just get on and ride. But, there's so many things that you can do in life that, it doesn't work out perfect the first time. And, you learn from those mistakes, and you just get back on and figure it out and move forward from there. And then probably have fun with it. Be able to laugh at yourself when you make a goofy mistake, or, it's okay to do that, because it'll take the edge off. And sometimes it just chases those scary emotions away, where it's just like, really, it's okay to mess up, and just laugh it off and be able to move on. So.
Well said. Well said. Well, Sean, first off, congratulations. You are our third two-parter guest we've had. Did you know we were going to do 2 parts on this one?
No, I just looked at the time. I'm like, whoa, it is 2 o'clock.
And to think you were kind of nervous, and here we are. We just had a good 2-hour conversation there. But Jez and I determined real early on, we're like, all right, this is going to be a 2-parter. So, but in all seriousness, thank you very much for taking out 2 hours of your day. Thank you for being an asset to the community. And just thanks for having the courage as a second female to come on the show. So thank you very much.
Thanks. I really hope that it impacts somebody, or it makes a difference for somebody. And, I feel like I've known you guys for a long time, and I can't thank you enough. You're like family to me. I mean, it's like weird if I don't talk to you if I don't talk to you guys during the week, it's like, wow, what happened, But I'm really grateful for everything.
It's definitely going to help a lot of people out, and it's truly an inspirational story. And what is possible with hard work and effort.
Yeah.
No, go. I didn't mean to cut off your final thought.
No. Don't give up. If you really feel that you got it in you, and do what you got to do to get her done.
Get her done. That's a great ending right there. Get her done. So thank you again, Sean. And for you listeners out there, if you enjoyed this 2-parter, a couple quick things. If you're listening to this on the website, leave a comment, click that share button, and we read those. I'm sure Sean will read any comments if you have questions or whatever. So you can do that. If you're listening on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, please subscribe. That way you can keep up to date on any future episodes, and just leave us a ranking. Leave us, hopefully on iTunes, a 5-star ranking. Little things like that really do go a long way, and let us know that all of us taking times out of our day right now, because the market is open as we record this, that's worth everybody's time. So hopefully you all got something out of this. To be honest, I have no doubt that you pulled at least a few nuggets of wisdom and some great, I know I got something out of it. There were some great quotes here. So at the end of the day, get her done.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.